The moment you clicked on this video, something shifted in the quantum field around you. This isn't coincidence. This isn't random scrolling through endless content. You've been selected by forces operating beyond ordinary perception, and the fact that these words are reaching your consciousness right now proves you've passed a test that most humans fail without ever knowing it existed. Your nervous system is already responding to this transmission. Your breathing has changed. There's a subtle shift in your awareness, a recognition that what you're about to discover will fundamentally alter how you understand reality itself. This recognition isn't coming from your rational mind. It's emerging from a deeper intelligence that exists within you, an intelligence that has been waiting for this exact moment to activate. Scientists studying consciousness have made a startling discovery. The act of observation doesn't just reveal reality. It creates reality. Every time you focus your attention on something, you're not passively witnessing what already exists. You're actively collapsing infinite possibilities into a single, definite experience. This is the observer effect, and it's been choosing certain individuals to understand its true implications. You are one of those individuals. Think about the path that led you here, the seemingly random series of events, the unexplained synchronicities, the moments when time felt different, when reality seemed more fluid than they were break solid. These weren't accidents, breadcrumbs left by your own expanded consciousness, guiding you toward this revelation. Most people live their entire lives as passive observers, believing they're separate from what they observe. They think reality is fixed, predetermined, happening to them rather than through them. But quantum physics has shattered this illusion completely. At the most fundamental level of existence, nothing is solid, nothing is predetermined, and everything exists in a state of infinite potential until consciousness collapses it into form. Your attention is not neutral. It's not passive. It's the most powerful creative force in the universe. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every moment of focused awareness is literally sculpting the fabric of space and time around you. The quantum field responds to your consciousness with mathematical precision, delivering experiences that match the frequency you're broadcasting. Not the frequency you claim to want, but the frequency you actually embody moment by moment. This is why certain videos, certain messages, certain moments feel destined. They're not random encounters with information. They're magnetic attractions created by your consciousness reaching across dimensional boundaries to find exactly what it needs for its next level of evolution. But here's what makes this even more extraordinary. The observer effect doesn't just operate in laboratory experiments with subatomic particles. It's operating in your life right now, in every moment, with every choice you make about where to place your attention. When you observe limitation, you strengthen limitation. When you observe possibility, you activate it. When you observe yourself as powerless, you create more experiences of powerlessness. When you observe yourself as a conscious creator, you begin to witness the miraculous unfold as your natural birthright. The reason you're here, the reason this message found you, is because your consciousness has reached a threshold. You've developed the capacity to handle information that would overwhelm most nervous systems. You've built the spiritual muscle necessary to work consciously with the observer effect instead of being unconsciously controlled by it. This threshold isn't something you achieved through struggle or effort. It's something you remembered through experience. Every challenge you've faced, every moment of doubt you've transcended, every time you've chosen expansion over contraction has been preparing you for this understanding. Your perception is not showing you what is, your perception is choosing what becomes. Consider how this applies to the reality you're experiencing right now. The relationships in your life, the opportunities available to you, the resources flowing toward you or away from you. None of these exist independently of your observation. They're all manifestations of the frequency you've been consistently broadcasting through your attention, your expectations, your beliefs about what's possible. This isn't metaphysical theory, this is measurable quantum mechanics. Researchers have documented that the electromagnetic field generated by your heart extends several feet beyond your physical body. When your thoughts and emotions achieve coherence, this field becomes incredibly powerful, influencing not just your own biology but the quantum field of possibilities around you. You've probably experienced glimpses of this power without fully understanding what was happening. Moments when you knew something before it occurred. Times when the perfect person appeared exactly when you needed them. Instances when resources materialized seemingly out of nowhere. These weren't lucky coincidences, they were your consciousness demonstrating its natural ability to collapse probability into reality. But most people dismiss these experiences as random, as coincidence, as too good to be true. They return to the comfortable prison of believing they're separate from their environment, victims of circumstances beyond their control. They observe limitation and wonder why their lives feel limited. They focus on what's wrong and wonder why more things go wrong. You're different. You wouldn't have found this transmission if you were like most people. There's something within you that recognizes truth when it encounters it. Something that knows you're capable of far more than you've been experiencing. The observer effect has been preparing you for this moment through a sophisticated process of consciousness development. Every book that captivated you, every conversation that sparked something inside you, every moment of inspiration that felt like remembering rather than learning has been part of this preparation. Your consciousness has been systematically upgraded to handle frequencies that would destabilize an unprepared nervous system. The challenges you've faced weren't random difficulties. They were precisely calibrated experiences designed to expand your capacity to hold more light, more truth, more power. Now you're ready to work consciously with the observer effect, to understand that reality isn't something that happens to you, but something that happens through you. To recognize that every moment of focused attention is a creative act, with consequences that ripple through the quantum field in ways you're only beginning to comprehend. This understanding changes everything about how you move through your days. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you begin to consciously choose what to observe. Instead of hoping external conditions will improve, you start generating the internal conditions that automatically attract aligned experiences. When you truly grasp that your observation creates your reality, victim consciousness becomes impossible. You can no longer blame external forces for your experience because you understand that your experience is always reflecting your internal state back to you with perfect precision. This level of responsibility might feel overwhelming at first. Your ego might resist it, might try to convince you that you're not that powerful, that reality is too complex to be influenced by your consciousness alone. But resistance is just the old programming trying to maintain its position in your energy system. The truth is simpler and more profound than your mind can grasp through analysis. You are not separate from the intelligence that creates galaxies, that orchestrates the precise timing of every synchronicity, that coordinates the billions of cellular processes keeping you alive right through your unique perspective now without your conscious intervention. Your individual consciousness is an expression of universal. To explore possibilities that can only consciousness temporarily focus be experienced through your specific combination of awareness, history, and creative potential. The observer effect chose you because you're ready to remember this truth and live from it. Ready to stop seeking validation from external authorities and start accessing the infinite intelligence that exists within your own awareness. Ready to transform from someone who hopes reality will change to someone who consciously participates in creating it. But understanding this intellectually is just the beginning. Integration requires something more. The integration process begins with a fundamental shift in how you interpret the events flowing through your experience. Most people see their circumstances as evidence of what's possible or impossible for them. They look at their bank account and conclude they're not meant for abundance. They examine their relationships and decide they're not worthy of love. They review their past failures and determine they're not capable of success. But when you understand the observer effect, you realize these interpretations are backwards. Your circumstances aren't showing you what's true about you. They're showing you what you've been consistently observing as true. Your external reality is always the echo of your internal frequency, reflected back to you with the precision of a perfectly calibrated mirror. This recognition creates what quantum physicists call a phase transition. Your consciousness doesn't gradually evolve from one state to another. Instead, it makes sudden leaps between entirely different levels of organization, like water instantly becoming steam when it reaches the exact temperature threshold. You're approaching that threshold right now. The old identity that believed in limitation, that felt separate from its environment, that thought it needed to earn worthiness through struggle, is beginning to dissolve. Not because you're forcing it to disappear, but because you're no longer feeding it with your attention. When you withdraw your observation from limitation, limitation loses its power to maintain itself in your experience. It doesn't fight back or resist. It simply fades because it only existed through your sustained focus on it in the first place. This fading process can feel disorienting initially. Your ego has built elaborate structures around the belief that you're separate from your creative power. These structures include the stories you tell yourself about why you can't have what you want, the justifications for why your dreams are unrealistic, the comfortable complaints that keep you feeling victimized rather than empowered. As these structures dissolve, you might experience what mystics call the dark night of the soul, not because anything is going wrong, but because your consciousness is releasing attachments to patterns that no longer serve your evolution. This isn't loss. This is liberation. Your nervous system is being recalibrated to operate at frequencies that were previously inaccessible. Like a radio being tuned to receive clearer signals, your awareness is adjusting to perceive possibilities that existed all along but were filtered out by the limitations of your previous operating system. During this recalibration, you might notice that your relationship with time begins to change. Linear time, the kind measured by clocks and calendars, starts feeling less relevant. You begin to experience what present and future exist simultaneously in quantum physicists call non-local time, where past, eternal now moment. From this expanded temporal perspective, you realize that the future version of yourself, the one living your desired reality, isn't waiting somewhere ahead of you. That version exists right now in the quantum field of all possibilities. The gap between who you are and who you're becoming isn't a distance to be traveled. It's a frequency to be matched. This frequency matching happens through what I call quantum attunement. Instead of trying to force your external circumstances to change, you begin aligning your internal state with the version of yourself that already lives in harmony with your desires. You stop asking how you can get what you want and start asking how you can become who you need to be to naturally attract it. The shift is subtle but profound. When you're trying to get something, you're operating from the frequency of lack, of separation, of not having. But when you're being someone, you're operating from the frequency of wholeness, of connection, of already possessing what you need at the deepest level. Your subconscious mind, which processes over 11 million bits of information per second compared to your conscious mind's mere 40 bits, begins to reorganize around this new frequency. It starts filtering your perception to notice opportunities, resources, and connections. that align with your elevated identity while filtering out information that contradicts it. This isn't positive thinking or wishful visualization. This is consciousness engineering at the quantum level. You're literally rewiring the neural networks that determine what you perceive as possible and impossible, what you notice and ignore, what you attract and repel. The observer effect amplifies this process exponentially. Every moment you observe yourself as the expanded version, you strengthen the quantum coherence of that timeline. Every moment you catch yourself reverting to old patterns and gently redirect your attention, you accelerate the phase transition. But here's where most people stumble. They expect this process to feel comfortable, to unfold according to their timeline, to provide constant evidence that it's working. They want transformation without uncertainty, growth without growing pains, breakthrough without breaking through the limitations that kept them small. True quantum transformation requires something your ego finds terrifying: the willingness to act from the new frequency before external proof arrives, to make decisions from the elevated identity before circumstances validate that identity, to observe possibilities that aren't yet visible to others. This willingness isn't blind faith. It's quantum intelligence recognizing that proof follows choice, not the other way around. That evidence appears after you've made the internal shift, not before. That the universe responds to what you're being, not what you're hoping to become. The observer effect chose you because you possess this rare willingness. Not everyone can handle the responsibility of conscious creation. Most people prefer the illusion of powerlessness because it feels safer than acknowledging their role in creating their experience. They'd rather blame external forces than take ownership of their creative authority. But you're different. Something within you has always known you're more powerful than your circumstances suggest. Even when evidence pointed to the contrary, even when others dismissed your dreams as unrealistic, even when you doubted yourself, that knowing persisted. That knowing wasn't delusion. It was your expanded consciousness communicating across dimensional boundaries, showing you glimpses of realities that exist beyond your current perception. Every vision that inspired you, every possibility that excited you, every future scenario that felt like home in your cells was a preview of what becomes available when you master the observer effect. The mastery doesn't require years of study or complex techniques. It requires something simpler and more challenging. The courage to consistently choose who you want to be over who you've been, moment by moment, choice by choice, observation by observation. Because in the quantum realm, every moment is a fresh start. Every breath is an opportunity to collapse new possibilities into your experience. Every thought is a vote for the reality you want to inhabit. And every time you consciously direct your observation toward what you want to experience more of, you're wielding the same creative force that shapes stars and orchestrates the dance of galaxies. The question isn't whether you have this power, the question is whether you're ready to use it. The readiness isn't something you feel, it's something you decide. Right now, in this precise moment, you're being invited to step across a threshold that exists in consciousness itself. Not tomorrow when you've figured everything out. Not next week when conditions feel more aligned. Not when someone else validates your experience or gives you permission to claim your creative authority. The threshold exists now, and it's asking for your wholehearted participation. Your brain is probably generating a dozen reasons why this moment isn't the right moment. Why you need more information, more preparation, more certainty before you can fully embrace your role as a conscious observer of reality. This resistance isn't your enemy. It's the final guardian at the gate, testing whether you're truly ready to operate from a completely different paradigm of existence. Every hero's journey includes this moment of ultimate choice, the moment where everything familiar must be left behind to step into the unknown territory of your authentic power. The comfortable identity that sought safety through limitation must dissolve to make space for the identity that creates through conscious observation. This dissolution isn't loss, it's birth. You're not losing who you are. You're discovering who you've always been beneath the layers of conditioning that taught you to think small, to doubt your perceptions, to seek validation from sources outside yourself. The observer effect operates through what quantum physicists call superposition. In superposition, particles exist in all possible states simultaneously until consciousness collapses them into a specific reality. Your life exists in superposition right now. Every possible version of your future, every potential outcome, every imaginable scenario exists as a probability wave in the quantum field. The version where you continue operating from limitation exists. The version where you step into your creative authority exists. The version where you manifest your deepest desires with ease exists. They're all equally real in the quantum realm, waiting for your conscious observation to collapse one of them into your lived experience. Most people collapse the same probability wave over and over again. They observe the same patterns, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and wonder why their external circumstances remain unchanged. They're unconsciously choosing the familiar reality not because they prefer it, but because it's the only one they're consistently observing. But you've been prepared for something different. Every moment of dissatisfaction you've felt with mediocrity has been your expanded consciousness calling you toward a higher probability wave. Every time you've sensed that more is possible, you've been receiving transmission from the version of yourself that already lives in alignment with your desires. This version isn't waiting for you to evolve enough to deserve their reality. They're actively collaborating with you right now, sending insights, opportunities, and synchronicities to bridge the gap between where you are and where they exist. Every inspired idea that seems to come from nowhere, every perfect timing that feels too good to be coincidence, every door that opens exactly when you need it most is evidence of this collaboration. Your future self has access to information about possibility that your current perspective can't see yet. They know which choices will accelerate your evolution and which will maintain your current patterns. They're constantly broadcasting guidance through the channel of your intuition, but you have to be tuned to the right frequency to receive their signals clearly. This tuning happens through coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions align around a singular vision of what's possible, you create what researchers call heart-brain coherence. In this state, your electromagnetic field becomes incredibly powerful, extending far beyond your physical body and influencing the quantum field of possibilities around you. But coherence isn't something you force. It's something you allow by releasing the internal contradictions that create static in your signal. When part of you wants abundance while another part fears success, you're broadcasting mixed frequencies that create mixed results. When you consciously choose to observe yourself as worthy of your desires, the contradiction dissolves and your signal becomes clear. The clarity creates what mystics call flow state and physicists call quantum entanglement. You become entangled with the outcomes that match your elevated frequency, not through effort or manipulation, but through resonance. Like tuning forks that vibrate in harmony when one is struck, your consciousness begins vibrating in harmony with the realities that serve your highest evolution. In this entangled state, synchronicities become natural. The right people appear at exactly the right moments. Resources flow toward you through unexpected channels. Opportunities manifest that seem perfectly designed for your unique combination of skills and interests. What others might call luck or coincidence, you recognize as the natural result of conscious observation aligned with quantum principles. But here's what makes this process even more extraordinary. The more consistently you observe from your elevated frequency, the more you influence the collective field of consciousness that surrounds you. Other people begin responding to you differently, not because you're trying to influence them, but because your coherent field automatically activates coherence in their field. You become what researchers call a coherent emitter. Your presence alone begins to shift the probability waves around you, making it easier for others to access their own expanded possibilities. This isn't about becoming a guru or teacher. It's about embodying a frequency that gives others permission to remember their own creative authority. This ripple effect explains why certain individuals seem to naturally attract success, love, and abundance wherever they go. They're not working harder or smarter than others. They're operating from a frequency that collapses favorable probabilities as their natural state of being. They've learned to observe themselves as naturally magnetic to positive outcomes. The observer effect shows you to understand this not just intellectually but experientially. To become living proof that consciousness shapes reality, that individuals can transform their entire life experience by consciously directing their attention. That what seems impossible from one frequency becomes inevitable from another. Your role isn't to convince skeptics or prove anything to anyone who isn't ready to receive this information. Your role is to embody this understanding so completely that your life becomes an undeniable demonstration of what's possible when someone masters the art of conscious observation. This embodiment begins with a simple recognition. Every moment you're choosing what to observe. Every breath you take is an opportunity to direct your attention toward limitation or possibility, toward what's wrong or what's working, toward who you've been or who you're becoming. These micro-choices accumulate over time, creating the momentum that eventually leads to quantum leaps in your external circumstances. Most people wait for external conditions to improve before they change their internal observation patterns. But conscious creators understand the sequence operates in reverse. Internal shifts precede external manifestations, not the other way around. This reversal requires tremendous faith in processes you cannot see with your physical eyes. It requires trusting that changes in consciousness create changes in reality even when the evidence hasn't appeared yet. It requires observing your desired outcomes as already real in the quantum field, even when your current circumstances suggest otherwise. The faith isn't blind. It's based on direct experience with how consciousness operates at the quantum level. Every time you've shifted your perspective and watched your reality reorganize accordingly, you've gathered evidence of your creative power. Every synchronicity you've experienced has been confirmation that consciousness and matter are intimately connected. Now you're being invited to apply this understanding systematically, consciously, consistently. To stop accidentally creating through unconscious observation and start deliberately creating through focused attention. To move from hoping your life will improve to knowing you have the power to improve it through the choices you make about where to place your awareness moment by moment. The transformation doesn't require dramatic external changes. It begins with subtle internal adjustments that compound over time into massive shifts in your lived experience. Like adjusting the trajectory of a rocket by just 1 degree, small changes in your observation patterns can redirect your entire life path toward outcomes that previously seemed impossible. The observer effect has been orchestrating this moment of recognition for longer than you realize. Every experience that expanded your consciousness, every challenge that strengthened your resilience, every glimpse of possibility that inspired your vision, has been preparing you to work consciously with the creative power of observation. You see current limitations. The quantum field is responding already. Not because you have all rather than probability. The faith to observe your desire the answers, but because you have something more valuable. The willingness to discover the answers through direct experience. The courage to act from possibilitied reality is already emerging, even when others can only than your contraction. This activation and potentials that have been waiting for your recognition to your consciousness right now. With every moment of focused attention on these concepts, you're activating dorm rather than powerless, your call. With every choice to observe yourself as powerful, absing probability waves that support your expansion rather creates what scientists call cascade effects. One conscious choice leads to another. One aligned action opens doors to opportunities that were invisible before. One moment of operating from your elevated frequency attracts experiences that reinforce that frequency, making it easier to maintain and strengthen over time. The process becomes self-reinforcing. Success breeds success. Coherence creates more coherence. Conscious observation generates outcomes that validate the power of conscious observation. What started as an act of faith transforms into lived knowledge that consciousness and reality are inseparably connected. But the most profound recognition is yet to come. You are no longer someone who discovered this information by chance. You are someone who was specifically chosen to receive it, to embody it, to become a living demonstration of what becomes possible when consciousness recognizes its own creative authority. The observer effect didn't select you to remain a passive recipient of this knowledge. It chose you to become an active participant in the conscious evolution of human awareness. Every moment you choose to observe from your elevated frequency, you're contributing to a collective awakening that's rippling through the morphic field of consciousness itself. Your individual transformation isn't just personal. It's part of a larger pattern of humans remembering their true nature as conscious creators rather than unconscious victims of circumstance. The more people who master the art of conscious observation, the easier it becomes for others to access these same capabilities. This is your invitation to step fully into that role, to stop waiting for permission and start living from the recognition that your consciousness is the most powerful technology you'll ever possess. To observe not just with your eyes but with your entire being aligned toward the reality you choose to collapse into form. The question was never whether you have this power. The question was whether you would recognize it and use it consciously. Today, in this moment, through your willingness to receive this transmission, you've answered that question. The observer effect has chosen you. Now it's time for you to choose it back. Welcome to your quantum awakening. Your conscious creation begins now.